Okay, next up we have Sarah Knight from Jisc, and I'll just put Sarah's camera up so you can see Sarah.
Hi everyone, can you hear me, Phil?
Yes, we can, yes.
And see my slides?
I can see your slides. I can also see Diana. We're having a few technical problems today.
Sorry. I'll switch me off.
Thank you. Well, firstly, thank you so much, Phil, for the invitation of joining you all today. What a fabulous masterclass we're hearing from our previous speakers. And yes, just to echo Phil's comments on Diana's work there, absolutely recommend the tool and the fabulous course, which I've also participated in. Brilliant resources there that are being shared, I think, from all our presenters. So I'm here today representing Jisc. I'm Head of Learning and Teaching Transformation at Jisc. And I'm going to be sharing some of our work that we've been doing around hearing how students are experiencing learning online. I'm going to give you a very, very short, brief overview of some of the work that we have been doing. And I hope that this will also prompt you to have a look at some of the more detailed reports, which I'll be sharing on links on my slides. But for all what we've been hearing about moving towards an online learning experience for our students and for our staff, it's absolutely vital that we have a way of gathering experiences from our students in terms of hearing how they are actually experiencing technology. How have they got the skills in order to be able to navigate through the content that we are delivering and sharing with them? How are they collaborating online? How are they developing their own digital capabilities to be able to develop the skills that they need to live, learn and work what is now absolutely a digital world that we are in? I just wanted to signpost some work which was published recently from the Office for Students, and in their report they very definitely recommend the importance of all universities of co-designing teaching and learning with students. And that goes back to a lot of the work we have been doing with Jisc over the years around student partnerships, and I know that many of the speakers that we've been hearing from today and the institutions that you all represent, you are working with students as partners on many of the initiatives that you do. We have to be involving students in every aspect around the development of our digital environment, our digital learning and teaching. And we also need to ensure that we have students as active participants in the process. It's not just a case of listening to learners, it's also acting on what they're saying and being able to show how we can then move the agenda forward in partnership with them. So that's the underpinning ethos behind what I'm going to be sharing with you today. I'm not expecting you to do this, or you can if you're interested in doing this while I'm speaking, but it would be lovely to hear your experiences of how you are gathering your students' experiences of online learning. I've set up a Menti, and if you do want to take a photograph of that or note down the code, it would be lovely to get a word cloud from the participants of the webinars today that we can share back through Phil with you all, just to gather the different ways and methods and approaches that you are using to ensure that your student views are informing the way that you are designing and delivering your online learning. So at Jisc, we have been working with universities and colleges on our Digital Experience Insights work, and that is a series of surveys for students, teaching staff, professional services staff and researchers to gather their views on how they are experiencing learning online or teaching online. We have designed those questions iteratively since 2016, and we have surveyed over 120,000 students over those years. So we are building up a national longitudinal data set around how students' experiences are changing with time and their use of technology within that. Our question sets this year very much focus on the experiences of the students studying in the pandemic, and that's what I'm going to be sharing a few highlights from that data with you today. Our questions cover a range of areas, but very much focus on how students are using technology within their experience of studying. Also thinking about their learning and the teaching that they are receiving, and also looking at how technology is supporting the development of their digital skills. So the data I'm going to share with you today was captured between October and December 2020. These surveys are still running and they close for our students at the end of April. So to date, we have gathered over 30,000 higher education student views and over 15,000 FE learner views. So we have got a very exciting set of data. The data I'm sharing with you today was capturing views up until the end of December, and hence the 21,000 responses, just over 21,000 responses we've had from our higher education students in this data set. So just to set the theme and context for how students were learning, and perhaps no surprises during the phase of which this data was captured, that students were primarily learning online. They were learning as well, mostly within their home environment. Some were in student accommodation. And that just sets the context for this question, which was highlighting some of the issues that those students were finding. Perhaps surprisingly for many, that many of those students, whether they were at home, whether they were learning on campus, were experiencing issues with Wi-Fi. They were having issues with mobile data costs, and also some cases access to platforms and no safe private space to study. And this is really important in thinking how we gather this sort of data to ensure that just the minimum requirements there for our students so that they can actually access the learning that's being delivered online. And thinking about, the context that you are in with your students when I talk through these findings, thinking about the experiences that your students may be having and how similar or dissimilar they may be from some of the findings I'm sharing with you here. This question was looking at how students agreed with various statements about their learning environment. And we would like to see those percentages higher, I think. They're fairly average in terms of students that were agreeing that their platforms were reliable, well designed, easy to navigate and safe and secure. That last percentage there, I think, is telling that only 36% of HE students agreed they were given the chance to be involved in decisions about online learning. And of course, these surveys are a way of starting that dialogue with students, but more work needs to be done to ensure there are effective mechanisms of engaging students throughout the process of their learning and the future design of the learning. Here we're looking at the overall quality of online and digital learning. And those percentages there, we had 68% of students were agreeing and positive about the quality of their online digital learning, and slightly higher for those students that were new to their organisation, so those first year students. And some percentages there highlighting students were agreeing with statements around the learning materials being well designed, slightly lower on engaging and motivating, and also at the right level and pace. Now, this slide's really telling because I think this shows, although recognising where students would be when they answer the surveys in that sort of initial first term of their learning, but here we are seeing that some of the lower percentages there in terms of the agreement statement relate to perhaps the areas where we would see technology can be used more effectively, more engaging, more interactively, and how that there are opportunities there to ensure that these activities are designed in to the learning opportunities that students are having online. Particularly if we're thinking about collaboration and communication, which is really key, as we've been hearing from our speakers today about the online experience.
2 minutes to go.
Thank you. So our last area focuses on digital skills, and this is a really key area if we are to encourage students to be able to use technology effectively for their learning. These figures are all given in detail in the report, so with the links at the end you'll be able to have a look at this in more detail. But it is important, I think, to remember that students still where they go for support with their online learning, and there was a mix there between students and their lecturers on the course that were providing them with that support. Some quotes there in terms of what students were telling us, and I think these are really telling in terms of giving students opportunities to engage, to collaborate, to feel part of a community, to ensure that they are not just a number in an online, in some cases, quite an isolated experience of their online learning. And if we are thinking of what we can do now from those findings, it's very much about getting the basics right, ensuring that the access is there and reliable access to technology, making learning sessions more interactive, recording lessons and making them available after delivery so they're able to use them for revision and catch up, support our staff with the ability to effectively use online tools. And what Diana was saying is fundamental, I think, to this. Looking at pace of delivery, too fast, too slow, shorter bursts, regular breaks. As we know, we are finding those similar issues when we're working online all day. Opportunities to create dialogue with lecturers and with fellow students. And going back to Sally's point earlier, the importance of timely feedback on formative and assessment activities. Next steps, please do get involved. Please do read our reports. If you are interested in running the surveys within your organisation, please get in touch with us. The student closes end of April, but staff are running to end of June, July. And do follow those links on our website. And lastly, we are running a community of practice event, free event on the 19th of May, where we'll be going into this in a little bit more detail. And also our Change Agents Network conference hosted by Kiel will be taking forward students and staff partnerships in more detail. So I'll stop there and return to you, Phil.
Thank you, Sarah. That was a really interesting talk, and I do hope that everyone is taking part in the Menti that you put up, because it would be great to post that afterwards. So I think Dan, the e-learning manager, is going to ask some questions now, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Sarah. Many thanks for that. That was a really good presentation. I'm going to be very selfish and ask a question here, if that's okay. One of the concerns that we hear from academic colleagues across Kent and indeed across the sector is around student engagement and how to foster that sense of an academic community. I guess it's a two-parted question. How would you recommend that academic staff build that sense of engagement and sense of community? And I guess the second part of that question is, how do we convince academic colleagues that the sense of visible engagement doesn't necessarily equate to students being completely disentangled from their learning, because students might not be visibly engaged with things like discussion forums, but they may well still be engaging with all their learning materials. So how do you sort of square that circle as well?
I think first and foremost, it's looking at the mechanisms that you have to replicate that community feel online that you would have face-to-face normally on campus. And I think a lot of our students are saying that's the thing that they really are missing. It's that feeling of connectedness with their organisation that they want to have opportunities for. So it's looking at ways in which you can offer those opportunities for contact with fellow students, with the campus, with staff. And I think the second point in terms of engagement with learning is very much about being upfront around the benefits around collaboration, around engagement. And particularly, students are saying, well, staff just assume that we know all about this, why we have to use these different platforms, these different mechanisms. And we have to ensure that we're more explicit about saying what the benefits are. And there's transferable practices for the workplace. Importance of collaboration, engaging is absolutely vital in the workplace now more than ever. So we also need to be pushing that agenda forward as well. I hope that helps. And student partners, I have to say that partnership projects with students and staff are an absolute fabulous way of really driving forward innovation and change. And I know you've got good practice at Kent to draw on with that.
Thank you. There's actually a question from Anonymous, which specifically addresses the survey, and it's asking whether you know whether the survey is biased towards so-called interested students.
I think with surveys, there is obviously always an incentive for those students who want to fill out surveys, and the whole discussion around how we engage the unengaged. But I think certainly from the feedback that we've had, the qualitative analysis that we do is very telling, that those students there is equally, you know, positive as well as very negative experiences that students are sharing. So it's certainly not picking up students that are absolutely confident and very happy with their learning online. It is through the vast range of students that we are surveying. It is certainly not coming through as any bias.
Great stuff, thank you. I can't see any other questions, but I may have missed some. So Phil, if I've missed anything, please do chip in.
Thanks, Dan. I think there was one in there, Sarah, but if you could jump into the chat and have a look at it, that would be fantastic. But again, thank you for taking the time to be here today.